Can prison gangs ever be a good thing? Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? When you think of gangs, you think of danger, you think of violence, chaos. So how can gangs fit into this mold and be a good thing? Well, sometimes they provide order where there is disorder, surprisingly. I've been studying criminal justice and criminology for 30 years or more at Sam Houston State University, and I've learned about human behavior, prisons, and the power inside, the gangs inside, the power inside. Basically, prison gangs have become a form of order in overcrowded prison systems around the world. And quite often, they run the prison better than the systems that were designed to run themselves. And, in some places, like in the Philippines, you have prisoners raising money for people that are sick. You have them taking care of the mentally ill. In Brazil, prison gang members will supply soap and clothing and, even change light bulbs when the prison administrators won't. But one of the things you want to remember about prison is that you have different people going into prison confronting the gangs. Only repeat offenders really know what to expect when they hear the gates clang behind them. Basically, when you have a new prisoner, a first-timer, their head is kind of pivoting around, trying to get the lay of the land. It's like they're entering a primeval forest. They're thinking of all these images, and, quite often their impression has been created by portraits in the media and in TV and movies and headlines to give them an idea of what prison is really like, prison gangs. And there are a lot of these things that are, terrible that takes place. But a lot of these things are, a lot of the things that they confront are unexpected. For instance, in most of Latin America, the prisons are under-resourced. You don't have enough guards. You don't have enough funding. Face it, when it comes to funding infrastructure, prisons are usually at the bottom of the list, no matter what part of the world you're in. And so we see this. And so, because there's not enough guards to provide safety, the gangs will often do that. In Brazil, for instance, the Red Command gang, they introduced a new ethos, a new set of rules that banned rape, banned theft, banned inmate violence. And of course, there were many other reasons for doing that, but here we see them injecting a form of order where formerly there was no order. Looking at some using a historical perspective, in South Africa during apartheid, Nelson Mandela, of course, was in prison for a long time with a lot of his fellow members of the African National Congress. And, basically the government was constantly trying to humiliate them, to bring them down. So what they thought that they would do is they would inject one of the most violent groups from prison into Robben Island, where they were being held. The hope was they would humiliate them and bring them down a rung. But what happened was that Mandela and his acolytes, they actually educated them, brought them around to a political consciousness. So we see how people can pivot, even in the darkest places. In another instance, in Brazil, in the 1970s, during the military dictatorship, you had as many political prisoners in prison as you did criminals. And one of the things you try to do is keep them separate. But again, the administration, the dictatorship, they wanted to teach these political prisoners a lesson, so they threw them together. They couldn't self-segregate. What happened was very similar to what happened with Mandela in South Africa. They educated the prisoners. They helped them organize better. And so this was one of the themes of prison gangs, bringing organization. These groups come in different shapes and sizes. Some of them are hierarchical, some are structured, some are rule-based, and all of these are created within a vacuum of authority in different prisons, so it varies quite a bit. So the bottom line is when you're looking at prisons and you're looking at prison gangs and you're questioning yourself, can prison gangs ever be a good thing? Well, it depends on the traditional definition of what good is. They can be useful. Prison gangs could be transformative. They can reveal the astonishing human capacity to adapt. They also, too, can basically provide an example of how people can elevate themselves in the darkest of places, how they can pivot from darkness to the light. And we see this happening all around the world. And really, when it comes down to it, we're not talking about systems in prison. We're really talking about humans and human behavior. And really, if you're looking at the main important lesson is the ability of gangs to find the light. You can find in prisons, basically the darkest circumstances, and people can find a sense of order and they can pivot. And this perhaps is one of the greatest lessons of prison gangs and why they aren't that bad.